In the quietude of a serene countryside, a tale of love, betrayal, and redemption unfolds. Two hearts, once entwined, now navigate the complexities of life, seeking solace in the simplest of joys. Join us as we embark on their journey, where every turn unveils a new layer of their soulful saga. Who knew that avoiding emotional bullets would be the ultimate survival skill in the relationship? Alex has the scars to prove it, and the knowledge to offer. I'm simply here to get it out, Alex says. I've been in therapy for what occurred to me over the previous 5 years, and I've been advised that writing out my emotions can help. So, here I am. I began dating my first genuine girlfriend in 2020, while COVID, I will call her Sonia. We actually met at the grocery store because I opened the door for her. It was a simple gesture of generosity, but it sparked a quick discussion about the difficulties of grocery shopping during epidemic, and not just grocery shopping, but life in general, as most of us know. Her grin was warm, and her eye sparkled with a radiance that made the dark, pressured environment of the time seem a little brighter. I say real since it was my first meaningful relationship, which began in 2020. I was a young 23-year-old, Sonia was a few years older than me and worked as a nurse. Her dedication and passion for her work were obvious from the outset, and it was one of the qualities I admired most about her despite the craziness of the pandemic. She always made time to listen to my concerns and provide consolation. Her empathy and courage were like a rock to cling to in the midst of a storm. It was undoubtedly one of the worst periods, but she made things feel pleasant and cheerful. If this makes sense, we weren't alone. We all had each other. We witnessed each other reach rock bottom. I lost my job, she was dealing with work at the moment, but we had each other. She had an exuberant passion for life that drew me in, whether we were discussing our favorite books, listening to music, or simply wandering around the park. She made everything feel unique. I fell in love with her generosity, knowledge, and ability to transform even the most banal situations into spectacular moments. She had a strange sense of humor that always made me laugh, even on my toughest days. She has an amazing capacity to make me feel noticed and understood. Nobody else had it like that, and here I am today, still trying to figure out what happened between us and where things went wrong. It comes in waves. Rather than helping, I'm writing this down, and perhaps it will at the very least provide us an opportunity to reflect on the good times and appreciate what we had. So, it sort of began soon before our 1-year anniversary. She came home from work one night, and I had a terrible gut sensation that I'd never had before. The atmosphere between us was completely off. I've replaced Op with Alex and Sonia with a placeholder for a new name, which you can decide on. I will continue this process with the rest of the text in subsequent messages. Please let me know if you have specific names you'd like me to use or if you'd like me to choose them randomly. She was scheduled to come over after work, but tried to leave. She had already abandoned me after returning from work, completely weary. Other days were due to difficult days in the hospital, which I completely understand. But that day felt different. Normally, when Sonia was too exhausted to visit me, she would call or email me with her usual warmth, apologizing and vowing to make amends. But that evening, her messages were brief and almost frigid. And when I insisted on seeing her, she reluctantly agreed. It had been like that all week. When she came, she appeared more than fatigued. She seemed detached, as if her thoughts were a million miles away, and she wasn't telling me anything. Her normal smile was gone, replaced by a strained, almost robotic expression. We went down to dinner, which I had prepared for us, but the conversation was difficult. She scarcely spoke. I tried to lighten the situation by recalling our favorite inside jokes and memories, but nothing seemed to reach her. As the night progressed, my anxiousness increased. I kept questioning myself if I had done something wrong or what had happened at work, until I couldn't handle it anymore. I softly confronted her, asking whether everything was fine. She groaned softly, avoiding my stare, and said that she was just tired and stressed from work. However, her statement sounded empty and lacked sincerity. For the very first time in a relationship, I felt a stab of insecurity, like if there was something she wasn't telling me. My thoughts raced with possibilities, none of them good. Was she unhappy with me? Was there anyone else? What about the uncertainty not directed at me? And I attempted to dismiss such thoughts, convincing myself that I was overreacting. That night, as we lay in bed, the space between us seemed enormous. She instantly fell asleep, but I remained awake, staring at the ceiling. I can't exactly articulate how I feel. I felt more intuitive than anything. I'm sure some of you have been through this before. I knew it was probably improper to look through her phone, but I absolutely needed to know, even if nothing was wrong. I simply had to squash it. I'm ashamed to say that I looked through her phone. I came upon a string of communications with a name I did not recognize. My heart fell as I read them. I'm not sure what I expected to see, but part of me wished I hadn't discovered anything. I've replaced Sonia with a placeholder for a new name, which you can fill in as you wish. I will continue this process with the rest of the text in subsequent messages. If you have specific names in mind for the characters, please let me know, and I will incorporate them into the text. Like that there were steamy texts, sexting, late-night discussions, and even arrangements to meet up. My darkest worries were fulfilled right in front of my eyes. As I looked more, I discovered more chats with other men, confirming that she had been cheating on me for what appeared to be the entirety of our relationship. The revelation struck me like a ton of bricks. The woman I loved, whom I thought I knew so well, had been leading a double life. Every happy moment we shared felt tainted, a nasty joke. I experienced a burst of rage, betrayal, and sadness all at once. I couldn't breathe because my chest tightened from trying to grasp the weight of what I discovered. I called my brother in tears. I confronted her in the morning, and she responded with crocodile tears. I apologized. Manipulation might also include threatening self-harm. She played the victim card, and I, being young and naive, fell for it. I eventually caved. She brought up the concept of an open relationship. I wasn't prepared to let her go just yet. I blamed myself and apologized for not being good enough for her to want to be with a single man. At the time, she allowed me to take the fall. I promised her I would be a better man. I attempted to open the relationship, but it did not meet with any other ladies. I was largely just her, talking to guys and pretending she wasn't talking to the guys she had been cheating on me with. She wanted to bring a third person into the bedroom with us, and I was afraid she might leave me. I agreed, but the sting is that she did not want it to be a woman. She exclusively desired masculine third parties. Like a fool, I agreed. It lasted approximately 6 months. I invited her to move in with me since I didn't trust her. We discussed getting married and starting a polyamorous relationship. I had considered it briefly, but I hoped that by living together, I would be able to exert some control over our relationship. But I soon realized it was a naive hope. She began asking if others could move in with us, pushing the boundaries even further. I resisted. I didn't want our home to become a revolving door for outsiders. Despite my efforts to establish boundaries, I felt increasingly powerless in my own relationship. She begins having sex with other partners and repeatedly rejects me. We have extremely little sex. After another year of this strange arrangement, something changed in me. I became angry and resented her. I became quite bitter and cold. I couldn't believe how badly this woman I loved had harmed me. The pain and betrayal festered within me, transforming into a twisted yearning for vengeance. I decided to give her a taste of her own medicine. I went out and found women, brought them home, and asked Sonia if we could do threesomes. She became upset at me for even asking, which was the height of hypocrisy, given what she had put me through. I made certain she saw the amorous texts and sexy images on my phone. I'd come home late, smelling like perfume with no explanations. I refused to tell her who I was with, despite our agreement. I wanted her to experience the same paranoia and sadness that I had felt for so long. Witnessing her rage seemed like twisted vindication, but it did not provide the satisfaction I had hoped for. Instead, it only exacerbated my sense of loss and the illusion that the lady I once loved and admired had become a source of sorrow and hate. The relationship that had once given me so much delight had become a vicious spiral of betrayal and retribution. The whole thing was really wrecking my life. I had to sell my family because I was ashamed. When I saw them, they grumbled that they no longer knew who I was. My brother commented on how unhappy and miserable I appeared. Finally, one day in 2023, I awoke and pondered what the heck I was doing. Who exactly am I? I didn't recognize who I had become. Sonia and I were now essentially just housemates. We didn't sleep in the same bed anymore. Our paths hardly crossed. One of the women I had started dating in an attempt to make Sonia jealous was truly falling for me, but I was just trying to make it just physical. I didn't want to harm anyone the way Sonia was affecting me, so I ended it. At this point, I told Sonia that I couldn't take it any longer and that I was wasting my life with this soul-sucker who cheated on me right in front of my eyes. I begged her to go, which was not easy at first. She simply refused to accept it. She stated that she was not moving out, and I said that if she didn't go, I'd box up her belongings and leave them on the front yard. She said I was wasting everything away. She insisted that I couldn't simply kick her out because it was our place and center. It was genuinely my apartment, and she's been the worst roommate I've ever had. Then the floodgates erupted, and I informed her that she was an awful person who only wanted to hurt me, and I've been a dead man walking since I found out she cheated on me. She told me I was being theatrical and that this entire life requires two people. She stated I knew what I was getting into when I agreed to start the relationship. She mentioned that I could have said no at any time, and then she labeled me a weak little boy and said I was a quitter and I am just giving up. I told her that she was the one who gave up the moment she decided to cheat on me and continued to do so. I mentioned that I tried to make it work, and the dispute escalated from there. She accused me of being selfish and unreasonable, of abandoning our relationship without working hard enough to repair it. I responded by describing all the ways she had harmed me, the countless nights I had spent suffering over her betrayals, and the times I had swallowed my pride and anguish in order to keep us together. From then, I just started gathering her belongings and taking them out of the yard, even the little items she had purchased such as flower pots and bottles of wine. I just wanted to leave. She began yelling at and pushing me. She tried to become physical with me once, and I had to lock her out of the house. She phoned one of her partners, and the situation quickly escalated from there. The police became involved. Essentially, her partner and I became physical. I was defending myself, and I bled all over the front porch. I eventually charged him, and he spent a couple of nights in jail. Sonia tried to return the next day. She sobbed and tried to apologize. She inquired where she should go, and I informed her that she could go to any of her previous lovers, friends, or relatives. I should have informed her that I was done. She was hilarious. I informed her that I couldn't continue living like this. She continued to resist, making every reason to postpone the inevitable. She played with my emotions, reminding me of the happy times and the hopes we had for the future. I told her she needed to pack her belongings, and I didn't want to see her again. I told her I'd assist her in packing her belongings and load them into a truck, and it had to be out by the end of the day. After hours of crying and vomiting, the truth of the situation dawned on her. Yes, she vomited from hyperventilation. She eventually caved, but it was evident she was far from embracing it. While I was putting things outdoors, she said, "I hope you know what you're doing. and I told her that was something I should have done a long time ago. Before my brother and wife ended up coming over to help and provide spiritual support, and I am grateful to them for it. As she drove away for the last time, I felt a slew of emotions. There was relief in recovering my space and life, but also a deep sadness for the love that had been lost and the future that would never come. After that, I blocked her from my phone and social media, and while it may seem dramatic, I burnt all she had left. Practically everything that reminded me of her was gone. This first serious romance proved to be a traumatic experience, shattering my idealistic notions of love. The betrayal and pain taught me more about myself and the complexities of relationships than I could have possibly anticipated. It was unquestionably a horrible first relationship. I learned the hard way the value of trust, communication, and self-esteem. Despite the suffering, it taught me to value my own worth and the need for setting limits. It taught me that true love should not be at the expense of my own pleasure and well-being. Finally, this event impacted me and made me more conscious of what I seek and deserve in a relationship. It was a tough lesson, but it ultimately strengthened me and prepared me for future relationships. If it's any comfort, I learned from one of her acquaintances that Sonia had been let go from her position at the hospital due to severe underperformance. Some of her colleagues had complained about her. I suppose I wasn't the only one who had troubles with her and trusted her. Apparently, she had been stealing medication for some of her partners and failing to properly complete medical paperwork. Last I heard, hospital managers were conducting an internal inquiry to determine the impact of Sonia's actions on patient care and workplace relationships. Anyway, thank you for reading this. If I had any advice after all of this, it would be to not disregard any signs of trouble in your relationship. Trust your gut instincts and discuss any issues you have with your partner. Don't accept less than you deserve. You deserve to be with someone who respects and cherishes you, who is dependable and dedicated to creating a healthy, loving relationship. Even with your greatest efforts, a relationship may not always be healthy or enjoyable. Don't be scared to walk away if something is no longer benefiting you or making you happy. Remember that it's acceptable to prioritize your own happiness and well-being. Let us dissect this circus of power from grocery shop cuteness to front porch showdowns. You've truly covered the bases. Who knew holding a door open could result in a wild ride? Let's give it up for Sonia, the master manipulator and queen of crocodile tears. I mean, threatening self-harm in order to dodge accountability. That is the next level of emotional gymnastics, right? There's an open partnerships were like opening the Pandora's box of calamity, but well, at least you had a beautiful moment of clarity in the midst of chaos. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you realize there's just one way to get back up and kick someone out. That's just the first step towards hope. So here's to you, survivor of the romance. You confront the fire-breathing dragon of deception and emerge stronger, wiser, and with a few battle scars to brag about. And if someone tells you it was all for nothing, remind them that you have a PhD in marital problems and aren't afraid to use it. Here is the next story. On her birthday, I found out about my wife's betrayal. Kendra, the woman I most trusted, had been leading a double life. Why didn't you simply ask for a divorce? I confronted her, my heart racing in front of all our friends and family. I revealed her infidelity. The shock on their faces mirrored my own despair. Could you please tell me the going rate for a personal hooker? I spat out her previously hidden secrets, which were then played out on the big screen, shattering our world. That moment marked the end of my previous life and the start of a new journey. Here's my story. Enjoy watching it. I double-checked the house to ensure that I had not forgotten anything. It was obvious that the items I usually bring on unexpected trips had vanished. As expected, I promised my wife that I'd park my work car at the airport, as I usually did. However, the car and all of my other belongings remained at the office. I was 45 years old and had 25 years of managing experience. I just took an early retirement, missing out on a bigger wage if I stayed for another 5 years. Every year, I used my stock benefits immediately and received generous incentives depending on my performance. Instead of receiving cash for my bonuses, the employer deposited them immediately into my retirement account. This way, it wasn't deemed part of my regular income, and the bonus went into my retirement savings without any taxes taken out. Over time, my creative idea worked out well. As a result of investing my retirement savings in technology, my income will shortly exceed what I make now. It turned out to be a wise decision. Now, my retirement funds will go right into my new account through direct deposit. I set up a new bank account at the local Bank of America branch for my new location. On Friday, I deposited my final paycheck, which was significant because it contained vacation compensation after taxes. I made a lot of money by selling 850,000 shares. It was a decent sum of money to have saved up. The corporation was pleased to do it because they could hire someone for less than what they paid me. I couldn't deposit the check right away for safety reasons. This manner, it wouldn't be included in the things shared during a divorce. I got rid of my pricey suits except for one by donating them to Goodwill, along with other goods I didn't need. It was amazing to simplify my life. I packed personal goods and souvenirs, considering the tax rate difference from California to my future location. Overall, I thought I would gain by reducing also. I found that the cost of living was far lower than I imagined. I rented a tiny U-Haul truck for a one-way journey, which was leased through my Uncle John, who is part of my parents' family trust. Uncle John's name was referenced in combination with all the stuff I was bringing with me. He set everything up for me. I paid the costs and monies to conceal my identity. I was leaving the West Coast to return to my hometown, a little place that my wife deemed remote from anything. I no longer had to maintain working at a job that I had begun to detest. My wife's actions showed me that I was no longer needed to assist her financially. I was excited about moving back to a quieter life where my closest neighbor was not just across the street but a mile or two away. I remembered that my wife had forgotten about the farm my parents gave me. She didn't like the place and refused to go back, even for my family's funeral after they perished away in a vehicle accident. She believed the farm was too uncivilized for her. Her belief convinced me that I was doing the right thing. I married someone arrogant and self-centered, thinking I had transformed her, but now I found I was wrong. I started to question if I ever really understood Kendra, like many others before me. I fell for the image she portrayed. Did she even know herself? It became evident to me that I never did. Through Kendra's actions, I finally saw our relationship for what it truly was. As a result, I started getting my belongings sorted. My aspirations and dreams evolved, leading to a change in my future. I was shocked to discover myself feeling generally content, an emotion I hadn't had in a long time. However, breaking free from the limitations of my former existence was going to have ramifications for many others. I inherited the family property after my parents went away 5 years ago, but I never closed their trust account. It turned out to be fortuitous, as it couldn't be counted as common property in my marriage due to this. I simply rented out the farm's acreage to local farmers who paid their rent into a family trust account. I hadn't made any alterations to the farm on purpose, saving the money for emergencies. I knew how to maintain tractors and big machinery, so I decided to repair them for a living instead of directing their design and construction. A family member was busy getting my parents' old farmhouse prepared for anything. I was not worried about anything because I could stay with them until their house was ready to live in again if needed. Before Kendra returned from her work trip, I phoned her to let her know I would be traveling on my own business trip. I also verified if she had made any modifications to her flying schedule. She was pleased to finally come back home after traveling for 2 weeks with just a suitcase. I had meticulously organized everything. My 3 daughters and their husbands would arrive 2 hours early to prepare for the surprise birthday celebration. We had worked together to make sure it all went properly. One daughter even invited her mom's supervisor and his spouse to join us. I casually mentioned it, and his wife consented to come since her husband constantly boasted about her accomplishment. This would finally put a face to the person we had heard so much about. My daughters had no idea how startled they would be. More than 50 relatives and friends were eager to attend the potluck dinner to celebrate the wife's birthday, which was postponed due to her being away with the management team during her actual birthday. She explained that it was something vital that she couldn't miss. Before leaving, Kendra revealed her ideas with us. I didn't speak up even though I knew I should have. I informed my daughters that I take birthday notes for my wife and saved them on a CD, even though I had to travel. I wanted to be present in some manner, so I felt communicating my wishes like this would be a wonderful idea. I asked my daughters to play my recording towards the conclusion of the gathering, so everyone could hear my views about their mother. All they had to do was turn on the huge TV on the terrace and hit play whenever they believed it was perfect. I needed to tell my daughter's spouse that I had a new phone number when I got to where I was heading. I also shared my new email with him. David and I have been working together for a while. He was doing pretty well at the company I used to work for, and that's how he met my daughter. He knew about my plans to retire. Thinking it was all set. I chose to retire since I realized my wife was cheating on me. He wasn't sure until I gave him the investigators' reports. He needed to see the facts to genuinely believe it. I felt a little terrible for what was about to happen that evening, especially since David would learn something startling. It didn't seem fair for him to find out this way. The truth had to be disclosed. There was no way around it. He recommended me to delete all my details from the internet, including shutting my Facebook account. I did this when I discovered that she was on the plane back home. I wanted her to worry not knowing what he had told me. Even if she's family, she brought this upon herself. Let her strive to understand what's going on. I consented to it because of the absurd legislation in our state, which necessitates splitting items in half. The final stage was emailing my lawyer documents of our bank account balances and debts, which weren't much. Our house was valued at about $900,000 on the current tax assessment, with half being mine. With that sum, I could acquire a new house equally as lovely as the one I was leaving and still have some cash left for furniture. Before leaving the house for good, I placed my phone in the trash can under the kitchen sink. I looked around to make sure everything was in order before bidding farewell to Lodi, California, my home of 25 years. Once again, I was on my way home to South Dakota, where things weren't going great for me. I didn't think many people besides my family would even know I was gone, but I knew that my film would make a tremendous difference in many people's lives, and that concept made me incredibly happy. I went to a store that sold mobile phones from a well-known brand and purchased a new phone. The manager there helped me get a new phone number for the location I was going to. After a short delay back in the truck, I made a quick call using the new number. The person who answered was a woman, and I informed her of the new number and that I was leaving soon. She said she understood, and I turned off the phone to preserve battery. My new cell phone always had an emergency option, providing me peace of mind. I was excited about our vacation east in March before the weather got too warm. The landscape would be great to see, flowering with spring's regeneration. Kendra and I initially met at an Aerosmith performance along back. She was a California native, whereas I arrived from another state a year later. We got married. On the day my parents came for the wedding, I worked in research and development, whereas Kendra was in importing and marketing. We'd been working for the same companies for years. Kendra always looked good, even at her age. She continued to draw everyone's attention when she entered a room. Time had treated her well, as her appearance hadn't really changed since we got married. She still possessed fashionable clothing that accentuated her form wonderfully. I, on the other hand, had gained a bit of a dad bod with a pot belly. Kendra was excited to come back home after spending the past 2 weeks away with her boss and friend, Eric Hopper. She felt bad that her husband, Colin, had to leave suddenly. It was common for busy people like them to have disruptions due to work. Spending time with Eric was a nice change, but she was eager to return to her usual schedule. Having intimacy every night for 2 weeks was fun and made her feel valued and youthful. She preferred to be intimate with her husband twice a week on a consistent basis. After her small private plane landed, she left the airport and drove home in her company car. When Kendra arrived home, she was surprised to see her entire family gathered there. Her 3 daughters and their husbands had all arrived. The oldest daughter was 23 years old, Kendall. She enjoyed all of the attention from her family, friends, and some colleagues at the big party, despite the fact that the twins were a year younger. She was surprised to see her boss and his wife, especially since they had just spent 2 weeks together. Her daughter admitted she had invited them. Kendra's wife noted that her supervisor always spoke highly of her, which led to the opportunity to meet. This made Kendra feel pleased and honored. Later that evening, Kendra's 3 daughters each congratulated her on a significant accomplishment. The twins revealed that Kendra's husband wanted to join in and had prepared a special message for her. They then turned on the large TV screen and pressed play on the movie player. The people outside went silent. They all listened as I wished someone a happy birthday and announced that I would discuss some memorable moments from the previous year. I started with some amusing stories about our grandson's birth, our daughter's wedding, our anniversary, and our plans for a second honeymoon. It has been a busy year, I said. I believe we are finally on the same page as a couple. I used to enjoy our romantic weekends before the kids, but when I got back from a trip, I noticed something unusual on our security camera. It made me realize how differently my wife and I saw our lives. A short video began with my wife and 3 daughters discussing having extra friends without their partner's knowledge. The room fell silent as the video showed their personal thoughts about their partners, describing who they were, their experiences together, and the memories they shared. They looked out for one another when it was necessary. The first time I watched it, I was taken aback because everything seemed so surreal. Women discussing their sexual partners was something new to me. I had to hear it several times to understand what was going on. It was surprising to hear how casually they discussed cheating on their partners. Kendra proudly announced that she was currently in her 3rd friends with benefits arrangement in the last decade. She described how each husband had provided her with unique and exciting experiences, but she had grown tired of them. She proudly announced that she was already looking for her 4th husband. It was clear that none of her husbands understood her true feelings for them. She found it easy to manage and keep her husbands in check. Their primary goal was to make them feel special and valuable. Some of their friends and partners at the event were drawn to the way they described their fun activities. Many people had a memorable night. When I saw myself on the screen again, I couldn't help but wonder if they were aware that the security camera was recording them. If they were, it appeared that they were plotting something against me. It felt like the worst prank ever pulled on me. If they were unaware of the recording, their words revealed a great deal about their feelings for their partners. But I needed more than words to believe what I heard. I spoke up, unsure of what I discovered. In the following video, you will see the results of the investigators I hired. The second video showed my wife and her boss on a recent business trip. It was recorded during the first week of their 2-week stay and includes everything. They spent a lot of time sunbathing at Vancouver's only nude beach, staying together in one hotel room at the Western Bay Shore Hotel, where they checked in as a married couple, and taking a romantic horse-drawn carriage ride through Stanley Park. During their whale-watching trip, the couple exchanged sweet words, enjoyed romantic dinners, and took a nighttime boat ride. Some assumed they were on their honeymoon after seeing the footage. After seeing the footage, everyone recognized I'd been duped several times. The final words of the recording revealed the truth. It appeared that this was your birthday present to yourself, my dear, celebrating your 43rd birthday with Kendra. Your new romance must have been exhilarating. I can't confirm whether you had a romantic relationship with your boss, Eric Hopper, during your 2-week trip. However, I can confirm that I saw something on video. Your accommodation only had one double bed while my 3 son-in-law were present. Do you know what your partners are doing in secret? It turned out that I didn't know what about the parents. Are you sure your children are genuinely yours? I wonder if mine are all of Kendra's work trips. Were they merely for fun with someone different each time? Have I been a bad husband and lover all along? You appear to think so. I realized how insignificant I was to you when I saw how long your new relationships had been going on. If you were unhappy with us, why didn't you simply file for divorce, Kendra? I have one last question. Mr. Hopper values you as an employee because you do the tasks assigned to you. I have to wonder what he's paying you for. Does he pay you extra for performing special things? Do you know how much a married man often pays for a personal companion who is constantly available? I hope I could find out. I'm interested in what Eric Hopper might say in response to these questions. I believe his wife, if she were present, would be interested in his responses. The video finished, and all went silent on the terrace. Nobody knew how to respond. What I stated created confusion and harmed several people's reputations, even in California, where societal conventions are more loosened. Everyone was uneasy about the scenario. The police normally don't bother with thefts under $1,000. That is exactly how things are in California. When everyone returned home that night, there were heated debates among couples regarding what had occurred. I was confident that this event would be memorable for everyone. My wife, Kendra, and our 3 girls were all crying when I saw them later. I wondered if they were upset by what had transpired. I wondered if they were upset about getting caught. I didn't think they were thinking of me back then. To cap it all off, Eric Hopper's wife Karen Hopper, a gorgeous woman aged 37, handed them each a legal envelope. I discovered that Karen enjoyed smacking my soon-to-be ex's face and calling her harsh insults. My spouse and their new partner were both getting divorced from their respective partners. Both were faced with the consequences of being discovered cheating in public. I wonder how they felt about their current circumstances. Eric was astounded to be caught in front of his wife. He realized he could not reverse what had transpired. They'd both seen my evidence. He assumed his wife was unaware because she never questioned anything, but when he learned she was my lawyer, he realized Kendra was behind everything. He needed to let go of the woman in order to salvage his marriage, showing the contrast between my wife and my life had resulted in the breakdown of 5 marriages. My 3 daughters' husbands told them to remain apart until they were completely honest. The younger generation held diverse views on morals and norms, yet certain things were simply too much. It is recognized in California, but it takes a moment like this to really hit home. I kept driving until I got fatigued, then we stopped at a Motel 6. I parked such that my truck was visible from the office. I checked in bringing 1 suitcase and my new cell phone to the room. After taking a shower, I prepared for bed and plugged in my phone to charge. Was curious, so I went on the phone to see if there was a message from the lady who had my number. She had texted that she had returned from the party and to phone her, Karen. When I contacted my divorce lawyer, she responded swiftly. "Hello, sweetheart," I greeted her when she answered the phone. "How was your day?" It turned out to be better than we expected. Eric and I arrived at the residence about 3 o'clock. There were approximately 60 persons present. Everyone was pleasant and upbeat. The party ran successfully for 5 hours. Karen concurred, stating that I was correct when I said they wouldn't suspect anything. Kendra was delighted to be regarded as a special person. Later, as the excitement subsided, the student showed you a video you created. In response to what you said in the video, 3 new clients wished to collaborate with us at the organization. Karen explained that when she finally caught her breath after seeing the video of their family on the television, they remembered that they had forgotten to turn off the security system that day. Hearing 4 women say no, we made a mistake was entertaining. Karen couldn't help but laugh over the scenario. Everyone was surprised to hear the 4 women nonchalantly discuss having hidden connections outside of their marriages. Karen highlighted the video of our husbands sharing a beautiful moment made everyone assume the initial chat was genuine. When I brought out the food, everyone scattered to avoid conflict with their husbands. It was as if there was a huge ruckus in your home. When Sansom laughed and inquired if I was a divorce lawyer, I verified, and he handed me 3 checks right away. It appears that your daughter's pals are also experiencing dating troubles. Karen proudly informed me that she drove Eric's work car back and left him behind. I was wondering if they tried to contact me after so many people had hurriedly left, or if your wife tried to contact you. Those of us who were present when she noticed your phone ringing in the trash, the act of throwing away your phone communicated a lot without speaking. It appeared that you were communicating that you were done with everyone. As Karen mentioned, my husband was quiet, unsure of what to say, and assumed he had been cautious. I grinned and replied, "The clock is ticking. In 6 months, our divorce will be finalized. I have no regrets about discussing security systems with you because it led to our meeting. Hopefully, the process would be faster than expected. Maybe they can settle everything without a fight." Karen asked whether I still wanted to sell anything for cash. Yes, until she buys me out. With many people fleeing California, that could be a good option for me if that's what she prefers. She might start panicking tomorrow. You are accurate. I can't wait to watch how she reacts when she finds out you've quit your former job. Karen indicated that she will be selling her law practice soon. I told my sister and her husband that you were coming. He's thrilled to meet you and believes you played a role in obtaining his tractor dealership a while back. This new environment they created has just begun to have an impact. I'm wondering if they'll still find it hilarious in the end. I responded before leaving. Kendra was holding her husband's phone, trying to reassure him that Eric Hopper didn't matter to her and that their 3 girls belonged to him. Finally, he realized he no longer cared about the truth. He wanted everyone to know that he was finished with them. Her frequent lying was the reason. She was so preoccupied with herself that she overlooked the consequences of being discovered. It was difficult for her to accept that the pleasure and thrill she had outside of her relationship were not worth the repercussions. The damage was irreversible once it had occurred. Lodi was a close-knit community with deep memories. People may forgive, but they will not easily forget. Rumors would circulate about her. Colin's actions had communicated volumes. He had decided to take them out of his life for the time being until he could calm down. It may take some time, but he always forgives her past mistakes. Maybe he'll forgive her again. This gave Kendra hope that she could eventually win him back. Kendra realized she hadn't planned to live this way, but it happened gradually over time. She avoided taking responsibility and instead blamed others for her behavior. She didn't think her actions were wrong because no one was hurt. After getting away with it the first time, she quickly found herself doing it again. Eric Hopper was her 3rd friend with benefits, but that changed today. She never anticipated she'd be caught. Colin and she were always preoccupied with work, but they made time for each other at home. They held the outside world at bay. Her actions got her caught, and now she has to face the consequences. Even her daughters were divorcing. Kendra couldn't understand why Colin didn't handle it discreetly like he normally did for himself. This was unlike him. Was what she'd done to him truly so bad? It did not damage anyone. I remembered finding a video of my wife and daughters discussing their hobbies 6 months earlier. I never anticipated it to lead me to where I am now. Karen and I grew up near to each other, just under 20 miles away, but we never met because of our age gap. I'd already graduated high school by the time she entered. I planned a meeting with her firm to discuss getting a divorce. Luckily, I ended up working with her. I shared the video with her, and she was shocked. The man my wife mentioned having good sex with could be her husband. She assumed I had to check her Facebook profile to determine if we were discussing the same man. On that day, we both recognized our marriages were finished. We developed a kinship due to our husband's behavior. That day, we talked a lot about her principles and agreed to partner up and work as we looked into everything together. Our friendship grew stronger. Initially, we focused on our job relationship, but we ended up supporting each other emotionally. Before we knew it, we had built a friendship in just a few weeks. If you haven't experienced it, it's impossible to appreciate the feelings of betrayal, anger, hurt, and hate that come with it. We had numerous phone talks to get through those emotions. That's how our relationship began. We helped each other since we both needed assistance. I can't remember how we discovered about our histories, but it pulled us even closer. We connected because we shared similar life experiences and memories of familiar places. Laughing together about our past follies brought us closer. Reminiscing about our youth would often lift our mood. Neither of us expected it, yet our relationship developed naturally. Last week, we came to a realization. After handling our girls, we confessed to each other that we had acquired romantic feelings. Up until then, our bond had been strictly amicable. We promised to maintain this method until our divorces were official, desiring clear separations. It was 12 days ago when I bid farewell to Kendra. When Karen called me, she had conveyed some news about their father to her girls, but they didn't believe her. I questioned if her oldest daughter was present. Karen confirmed she was. I requested to speak with her daughter. I informed the daughter that her mother was my lawyer and that I could share some vital information with them. However, due to our legal relationship, her mother couldn't expose or discuss about those things. I didn't know who your mother was when I engaged her to aid with my divorce. She saw the evidence I had and knew we had a similar issue. I encouraged them to look at what I had before making a decision. Karen's 2 girls arrived at my place 30 minutes later. I talked to the young women about the house's security system and how it worked. You can deactivate the external section before coming inside. The indoor system will capture any noise or motion if you fail to turn it off. I thought it was vital for them to know how the film was made before watching it. So I requested Amber and Meto to watch the chat between my wife and daughters. They were astonished and embarrassed to hear my wife chatting about her private life with me. This is what your mom saw when I recruited her. Because of her ideals. She couldn't tell you how she found out. Right now I'm telling you that your dad and my wife are in Vancouver, Canada on their bogus work trip. Investigators are obtaining more evidence for both me and your mom when Kendra comes back. She'll receive the divorce papers. I had a talk with 2 adolescent girls about promises and their meaning. I emphasize that forgiving is straightforward, but the real challenge lies in regaining trust. I mentioned to my girls that their mother's behavior sets a dangerous precedent by not facing consequences for her acts. I'm not sure about what they did or didn't do, others will need to sort that out. Kendra indicated she's been doing this for a long time. I understand your father's position, but your mother sees him equally culpable. People like us worry where our spouse's loyalty rests, considering the vows they made to us on our wedding day. I explained that this experience had changed our perspective on our marriage. Everything looks different now that we know the truth. We were oblivious of what was really happening, but now we can see well. Both your mother and I have been greatly saddened by their acts, inflicting a lot of pain in our lives. Our children helped us realize that our understanding of our life had been wrong. Meadow, Karen's youngest child, stunned me by revealing that both my wife and I have more troubles than we believed. They stated that if our children had respect for us, they wouldn't have behaved that way in the first place. I never thought about that before. So, I told her, I was amazed at our wise remarks for someone so young. After they left, I contacted Karen to update her on how everything went. I hoped it made a positive difference, and it did. Karen later informed me her daughters felt safe talking to me. Amber stated that I remind her of my father since I listened first, then take a time before reacting when he speaks. You can tell he's wise like a grandma. He described things in a style that's easy to understand, never making it complicated, exactly like me. He's from our hometown, Karen added. He still clings onto his roots. He wants to go back to fix his dad's house and live a better, more peaceful life. Everything is very busy here, but Colin and I mourn the tranquil life we had growing up. He's tired of trying to please others and wants a simpler existence. He's returning to a simpler life. The next morning at 6, I started the road headed east on Interstate 80. My goal is to reach northern Utah, near the Wyoming border, by tonight. I'm casually savoring the sights I've always wanted to see, and weirdly enough, I feel calm and satisfied. That night, I arrived in a luxury hotel room and decided to check my email. I noticed a message from my eldest son-in-law, asking me to call him. I was grateful he left his phone number. "Hey David," I greeted him when we spoke on the phone. "Hi Dad," he replied. "I have so much to tell you, but first, where are you right now?" I chuckled and told him, "I'm on the road, simply taking some time to recover." "I will tell the person who wanted me to check in on you that I haven't heard from you," David explained. "Today has been crazy. Kendra came to the office early this morning asking about your whereabouts. She even suggested intending to take a flight to clear things out with you. She believed she could solve things in their relationship, but she was told you had quit your job. She wanted to be sure, so I went to talk to her. I explained that you got early retirement, and we are going soon. She inquired where we were relocating to, and I told her I wasn't sure. She accused me of lying, insisting that I knew where the retirement checks would be sent or could find out. I explained that sharing that information could cost me my job. The situation escalated, and I had to ask security to remove her. My father then mentioned that it wasn't over yet, which made me laugh despite the gravity of the situation. Carrie called to tell me her mom lost her job, and Eric Hopper was served with a $5 million lawsuit for causing a split in our relationship. She had to take a taxi back home. Kendra hired a lawyer to handle the situation, and they were able to serve him this afternoon. David explained, Carrie wishes to return home to see our son. I told her we wouldn't do anything until I was certain my son was truly mine. If she does not agree, she can take me to court. Carrie claims she hasn't been intimate with anyone since we married. I reminded her of something different she said during our conversation. I'm relieved they're not nagging me about it. I mentioned it with a laugh. I'm enjoying going to places I've always wanted to see. I replied happily, This short trip is turning out to be one of the best things I've done lately. The big question is, are you really going to end your marriage? David, the twins packed their belongings and are currently staying with Kendra. David mentioned that his wife was also staying there currently. No one wants to deal with the discoveries we made, emotions are high, and it is difficult for anyone to think clearly about separation. It all depends on the DNA test results. If he is not my child, there is no point in continuing this relationship. It appears that, like you, I was duped into believing something based on what she wanted me to see, like a fish caught on a hook. It took me 6 months to understand my feelings. It is critical to take time to make decisions. You can be fine with it, so be patient and do not rush into anything. I recommended that having time helped me go on and start over. My life is now on a new path, and I'm optimistic about it. You're not going to return, right? David asked. If my lawyer asks me to go to court, I will. I'm moving to a new place because it's less expensive and will save me money. The CEO also wants me to give advice on occasion, so I'll have a secure connection to my computer. This allows me to continue working even when I am not physically present. I said I was willing to help as long as I did not have to wear fancy clothes. David told me they wish you were their father. People would share their ideas with you, and you would provide useful feedback. Is this your new telephone number? Yes, it is, but let's keep it private for now, I suggested. Tell Kendra that if she ever needs someone to rely on, she can always reach out to her other friends who have previously helped her. If she questions it, simply remind her that for the past decade, it appears that she has considered me as a backup alternative. I was unaware that David had secretly videotaped our conversation and shared it with my wife and daughters. Later, I realized that Kendra was unhappy about it. She thought I shouldn't give counsel to my son-in-law because I was only a man. My daughters were beginning to understand the ramifications of their mother's decisions and lifestyle. Their husbands did not want much to do with them, even their own mother was becoming distant. Karen was delighted to hear from me. She explained that her team was swamped with additional incorrect party bookings as a result of my wife's birthday surprise. As a result, 1 or 2 of Kendra's ex-boyfriends were exposed. She had heard that Kendra had been dismissed. She assumed Eric did it to persuade her to reconcile with him, but she was not interested. Unbeknownst to him, the company's board of directors had already briefed her on the details earlier that night. Kendra was rehired and given a promotion, whereas he was demoted for utilizing work resources for personal gain. Karen informed her girls that she was returning to South Dakota once the divorce was finalized. She told them that if they wanted to stay in California, they would have to live on their own or go to their fathers. Karen expressed a wish for a more plain life, believing she had reached a particular age. Meadow inquired whether it was because of her affections for Colin. Karen affirmed her feelings for him but said neither had made a move. She went on to tell the story of how their relationship had evolved from its inception to the present. Meadow thought that the story would restore Karen's youthfulness, which she acknowledged. She informed her girls they were important in her life and may accompany her when she returned to be with me and her family. Karen stated, "I believe you can be who you want to be and live the life you want. Observe and learn from what I'm going through." This caused me to realize something crucial. It was unlikely that Kendra would meet someone like me again after our split became public. People in the region avoided her because of her previous behavior, making it difficult for her to form genuine and caring relationships with anyone. I wondered how long it would take her to realize the reality. I arrived in my hometown at lunchtime after a 3-day trip on my last week of work. I spotted a little eatery and decided to stop in for lunch. Before heading to the farm, I had arranged for the electricity to be turned on and was now waiting for my burger and fries while drinking coffee. "Dan, is this you?" "Hello, Colin. The old man strolled in and sat down in the booth next to me. "It's good to see you, buddy. You look fantastic." "Where's your wife?" John the First asked with a grin. "She's at home with our daughters, getting things organized. I had to go solve a few minor plumbing issues. They cleaned up the house and repaired the refrigerator. They also replaced the fuses on the stove." Uncle John stated that Robert and his wife now oversee the farm, so we reside in town. I proposed that we order supper together and catch up. It felt great to spend time with my family. Before returning to my previous home, I went to the neighboring grocery and started grabbing the necessities. I was astounded to see how much cheaper the meal was here compared to other locations. The charges were modest because no excessive taxes were added. By the time I got to the cashier, I had 2 carts full. We had attended the same school, so we talked briefly as she scanned my goods. When I arrived at my family's house, I was surprised by how wonderful it looked from the outside. It had been a long time since I had lived in a house made completely of bricks. My aunts and cousins excitedly greeted me, and we carried the items into the home together. After we finished putting things away, we all gathered around the coffee table as the coffee started brewing. After they left, I had a good look around the house. Uncle John's observation was correct. I needed some major improvements done. So, I asked him for ideas for construction businesses he trusted. He went above and beyond by bringing the crews to my home only 2 hours later. While they were there, I began unloading my belongings. After careful consideration, we determined that building a new house would be less expensive than repairing the existing one. The old house required a comprehensive makeover. The wiring was old and needed to be replaced, the previously common lead pipes had to be removed, and the barn was in fantastic condition, needing only a new roof, with several boards replaced and a fresh coat of paint applied. It would appear brand new once completed. The biggest task left was to update the electrical system. I dismantled the stables to make room for my shop, where I work on tractors and heavy equipment. I called Karen that evening to report my results. We agreed on a single-story house with a tiny cold cellar for storage, built on a 4-foot crawl space and adequately insulated for the winter. I agreed to meet her brother-in-law at the dealership the next day. Later, I called the contractor to discuss my demands. He indicated that he would show me some plan choices after work. I returned the rental truck and received a ride to the automobile dealership, purchasing a decent used Ford pickup in good condition. I ensured that ownership and insurance were transferred. I also went to the bank to deposit some money and received 3 blank checks. I was shocked at how much cheaper petrol was here than where I used to live. Following that, I went to meet Karen's brother. I actually attended high school with him. He offered me a job straight away and said I could start any time I wanted. I told him about my future objectives and relationship with the organization. He made a joke about his sister and our strong relationship, saying that he had never really gotten along with his sister's former husband. He wasn't the only one thinking this way. I had the same thought. The builder and I agreed on a price to build a 4-bedroom house with a large 2-car garage beside the existing home. We also explored adding a contemporary septic system, gas for heating water and cooking, and a large gas generator for power backup. The house would be very vast, with a laundry mudroom that leads to a large garage. There would be a cold basement beneath the home, accessible from the garage side, and the 4-foot crawl area beneath the main floor would be well insulated and accessible from the furnace room. It was good to know that the money I get from the divorce would be sufficient to fund everything. After speaking with Karen about contacting her brother and finalizing the new house deal, I received a call from David. He informed me that Kendra had hired a private detective to find me in the hope that we could reconcile. There's no need to sort it out. I do not want anything anymore. If we reconciled, she would simply harm me again in a new way. It's unfortunate that someone as intelligent as her can't see this. It's no surprise that things aren't going well here. I was astonished when David fell silent. I had to see whether he was still listening. "Yes, I am," he said. "Your remarks cause me to see things differently. Sometimes basic truths can have profound implications. Many allegedly smart people struggle to grasp these fundamentals, which can result in problems like those we see in our government now. Instead of addressing the underlying causes of problems, they focus solely on immediate fixes. The problem is that no matter what they do, the situation worsens, and they blame each other. David, your mother-in-law will never accept her error. I know I could be the problem because my perspective is different. She cannot understand my traditional viewpoints. I'm not really up to date on what's considered okay by today's stylish individuals. She has been influenced by new liberal ideals in California. I don't get along well with folks like her. She believes I should change my way of thinking. She couldn't deal with me having someone else, but I'm supposed to be fine with her having one. She is not truly sorry for what she's done, she's just said she was found out. I told my father, "Wow, you are accurate." He stated, "I should have a serious conversation with your daughter, Carrie, about this so she understands your point of view. She must understand that marriage is about being equal partners." My father always maintained that what is fair for one person should be fair for another. Mom's behavior clearly indicated that she saw you as a means to an end. David, may I advise that you seek marriage therapy together if she chooses that road, look for a more conservative viewpoint to show her a different side of herself. It might help balance out the progressive viewpoints she is accustomed to. I attempted to give her a different perspective, but it appears that her mother had a greater influence on her upbringing. If she can't strike that balance, you won't have a chance at peace of mind, you might need to leave. I started fixing up the barn by removing the stalls. It kept me occupied, the manual job was difficult but felt good to exercise my muscles again. I truly started to like it. Then, on Thursday night, I got a call that took me off guard. It was Karen. My daughter decided I needed some cheering up. She told me they had told my brother about our divorce, not realizing he had known for more than 4 months. She explained to them how I learned about their father's affair and described meeting you, Joseph. He indicated that he knew you from school, how you helped him get a job at the car dealership years ago. I owe him a lot. It turned out that you returned to manage your family's farm, which you owned. They talked about us for an hour. Everything slowly became evident. They were taken aback that their beloved uncle supported our relationship, but they were requested to keep it a secret. I told them that Kendra had hired a company to find me. She believes that if she talks to me, I would forgive her and come back. "How do you know this?" Karen inquired. "I called my son-in-law at work," I responded. "He keeps me updated, and talking to me helps him figure out what to do next." "That is okay," Karen stated. "My daughters did something exceptional, but they will not tell it. I inquired about it out of curiosity. They used my credit card to book a surprise flight. They had scheduled for me to arrive at the local airport at 8 p.m. on Friday and return on Sunday evening. Karen explained that they wanted me to enjoy and relax because I earned it. When her daughter came, the mother was waiting with a dozen red roses, excited and hopeful. I looked forward to the impending weekend. It was the beginning of our official time together and reminded me of my teenage recklessness. I couldn't help but chuckle. A beautiful brunette approached me. Her hairdo highlights her stunning face. Her innate attractiveness made me grin. This was the first time I saw her. She wore comfy blue pants, a yellow shirt and a light jacket. It was good to see her happy and confident. I knew she was busy, so we quickly grabbed her suitcase and Rushed to a nearby Ruby Tuesdays, where I had a surprise prepared. After we parked the truck, we locked the suitcase in the front and entered. Her brother and his wife were already present. After dinner, Karen pledged to assist her brother with legal concerns in the future. As we drove down the driveway of my childhood house, I had no idea what to expect. The house was typical of those erected throughout the 1960s. It was a cozy spot designed specifically for those days. Karen smirked as she entered. "This reminds me of my childhood home." She chuckled. The ice would remain cold in a beer mug. She added, handing each of us a beer. I discovered some of my parents' old recordings and played them on the turntable. It was great to listen to old Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, and Frank Sinatra songs while cuddling on the couch like teenagers. These were the songs our parents liked when we were kids. We were being careful because we wanted to ensure we were on the same page. Kendra Waite was upset. She was used to getting whatever she wanted. She wanted to find her husband Colin, but had trouble finding him. There was no record of him flying away or hiring a car. The private investigators were also unable to find anything. His Facebook account had been closed, and he had cancelled his credit card with Bank of America. Every clue she pursued appeared to go nowhere. Each day this week, his lawyer contacted to inquire about her lawyer's name. She thought their marriage could still be saved. He removed all of his contacts from their old phone book, which they used for their landline. She knew he had a family but couldn't remember their names. She didn't think much about his family because they weren't close to her. He made certain to erase all of his information, including his social security number. Her girls were frightened since he spoke to them every day before leaving. David was the only one who had heard from him recently, but he was not disclosing any information. He had told his oldest child, Carrie, not to contact him until he could verify that little Colin was his son. He didn't appear to be in a rush, though. When Carrie asked him about it, he simply laughed. This was not the way a husband should behave. Colin had always been dependable, doing what was expected of him, but now someone else had to be hired to do his job, which caused frustration. The hired help did not show Colin's level of care and dedication, creating problems for everyone involved. If Colin had followed his usual routine, his connection with his 3 daughters would not be deteriorating. The 3 daughters were partly blaming their mother for their relationship problems, which was unfair. Colin was not behaving appropriately. Every woman should accept responsibility for managing the men in her life. When in a relationship with a woman, every man must recognize that she is in control. Colin, Karen's husband, faced consequences for mistreating her and their children. Drinking coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise is a simple joy. Karen and I enjoyed this peaceful moment together. I'd never understood why my parents started their days like this until now. Karen explained that being here, feeling loved and appreciated by the person you're with, gives you the confidence to face any situation in life. They'd sit quietly together, sharing a bond that allowed them to see the world in the same way. I held her hand, in the same way that my father held my mother's hand. Even though no words were spoken, I knew my actions conveyed a lot. On the way home, I realized that I was returning to my former self and leaving behind the person I had become. I could feel changes happening inside me. I felt more confident and relaxed than I had in a long time. I quietly expressed my feelings. Last night, as you walked toward me, I noticed that cloud move away from you. Only by going through it yourself can you understand this strange sensation, Karen replied. Your words demonstrate how deeply it affects you. For me, it's like a cultural surprise. Everything feels genuine here, there is nothing, you can truly hear your own thoughts in this location. The quiet morning allows you to do so. Karen mentioned how lovely and relaxing the location was. It made her realize the value of being in sync with one another. The weekend was enlightening for us both. During this time, we learned new things about ourselves. We decided not to get too intimate. Our connection meant more to us than just the physical aspect. I had the opportunity to meet her family for the first time. The visit went well, and I helped her father fix his tractor's timing and other minor issues. It took about 4 hours, but the tractor eventually ran smoothly and steered well. Karen noticed me getting dirty with oil, grease and dirt for the first time. She smiled as I cleaned up in her parents' mudroom. My mother used to say that mushrooms were created for women so that their husbands would not bring in dirt. I joked, recalling my mother's old saying. Her father mentioned that if she hadn't been there, the tractor would have been in for a week of repairs. Her mother was thrilled for her daughter to return home. It was difficult saying goodbye at the airport on Sunday night. It had been 2 months since I left California. Kindra got a lawyer, and the court approved a $1,550 split. Karen's spouse was still acting silly, being parsimonious with money. David and Carrie were getting therapy from a counselor for their relationship after they had a baby together. They were visiting with the counselor every week and making modest but steady improvement. Carrie began to view things in a new light, seeing things from a different perspective. Little Colin was growing swiftly. I was excited to see him shortly. Kendra, Faith, and Hope, my daughters, were all getting divorced. Their ex-husband said they could never trust them again. I tragically recognized why. My ex-wife's relationship with her daughters had changed forever. I had returned to Lodi in a private jet. I'll be reviewing the company's most recent test model for a week or two to see if it's ready for mass production in 2022. For the next 2 weeks, I will be testing the model to make sure it is robust, easy to move, and can be fixed easily. The employer has arranged for me to stay at the Hampton Inn Suites in town. Amber Hopper wanted to treat her mother to dinner at a hotel restaurant. When I arrived, they were already seated. Amber greeted me with a smile as we had met earlier for coffee to discuss the expedition. I had a surprise guest joining us for supper, and I hoped her mom wouldn't mind. Move over a bit in the booth, Amber indicated. You'll be glad to see them. Karen asked, what are you doing, as she made place for another person. I've met someone new in the previous 5 weeks, and both me and Meadow are excited to spend more time with him, I said as I sat down. Karen then noticed me and smiled huge when she recognized me. I had developed a mustache and a goatee in the last 2 months. It feels like I've dropped weight, but I actually didn't. The fat in my body changed into muscle. Karen was astonished and stated she liked my new appearance. She questioned why I was there. I explained that I was eating supper with my girlfriend and daughter. I thanked Amber for helping me arrange the surprise. As we were going to pick our food, Meadow appeared. I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long, Meadow said as she sat down. I had to work longer than anticipated. I revealed that I was in town to try out a new model set to be published in 3 years. The tractor now operates on natural gas, a major change from before. We anticipated it would function well, so the farmer could quickly put up a refill station on the land without much expense. The equipment acquisition cost includes fittings for the refill pump. Natural gas is cheaper and cleaner than normal gasoline. We believed our product was popular and could sell well. If the test went well, they would introduce it in a new collection soon. Before we were going to choose dessert, Karon's daughters wondered if we planned to move to South Dakota before school began in September. Karon replied with a largely affirmative, "Why? How near is Vermilion to our new house?" "It's roughly 40 miles, I said. "I'll be starting an MBA at the University of South Dakota soon. I was wondering if I may stay with you all, or if not, I can stay at Uncle Joseph's place. I chose that university since it's one of the most affordable in the country, so I can save money on living expenses. Karen smiled but also tried to hide her emotions. I clasped Karen's hand while she talked softly. You were correct. We're getting a new 4-bedroom house ready. It should be done next month. We wanted to make sure you both had a place to stay if you decide to visit. You need to tell your mom the colors you like for your rooms, Karen added. You were assuming we would all go together, Meadow noted. Karen said, we should let you select for yourself. If I had forced you, you could have blamed Colin, and it could have caused problems for him in the future because of any lingering anger you could have felt. How did you realize that, Mom? Amber inquired. Colin asked me directly if I believed in you two to choose what's best for yourselves. I responded, yes, she told us. He responded, well, then allow them to do so. He believes your bond is better than what they have with their father. Amber and Meadow were confused. Amber then remarked, how you were observing us the first night as we departed, Colin. It seems you already had a plan in mind, didn't you? I knew you were pursuing further schooling, Amber. But I wasn't sure where. Meadow attracted my eye the most. It was when she underlined the significance of respect. That everything fell into place for me. I clarified the toughest. Chore was reassuring your mom that everything will be okay. Uncertainty is always tough. After supper, Karen left and I went to the theater, while Amber and Meadow headed home. That's when Kendra spotted me. She drove up just as I was opening the car door for Karen. It took her a little longer to recognize me, because I looked different now. I had a new way of living. No longer working at a desk with a computer all day. By the time she realized it was me, we had already left. Working on the barn helped me lose weight. Putting in a wood stove to keep warm and cleaning up. My muscles got stronger and my pot belly disappeared. Now I seem thinner and younger, feeling less worried. It's like I've been granted a fresh start. After spending time in relationships, I noticed a new side of myself emerge. I said farewell to Karen, watched a movie, then went back to my room. I asked for a wake-up call and was allowed into the new design area by security. Seeing the completed project was the highlight of my day. When the finished product was ready for approval and mass manufacturing, it seemed dull at first, but once I realized how amazing it looked, all the hard effort felt worthwhile. I started testing it before the rest of the team came. I spotted a few tiny problems that needed addressing and altered the way the food line was set up to avoid the hot air. I made note of these adjustments in my report. Everyone was impressed with how well I was performing while operating the test tractor. The president entered while I was moving around 2,000 pounds. It was easy to operate and drive, even on the muddy track. We prepared for testing. He chuckled when he spotted me in blue trousers, a white t-shirt, and a backward blue baseball cap, operating the massive tractor like it was mine. The gear shifts were flawless, and the tractor's arms were powerful enough to pull the hefty weight we needed. I tried tipping it numerous times, but couldn't do it. I even drove it on 2 wheels off a ramp, but it landed back safely on all 4 wheels. The balance of this equipment is pretty superb. Colin, you're great, the president observed. If you had the ability, you would most likely try to balance this tractor on your head. What do you think about it? At first glance, I believe this design will be one of our best yet, especially if it can handle everything I have planned for it. Aside from a few minor tweaks, it's performing great. Another advantage is that it uses less fuel than a conventional diesel engine. I shook his hand and welcomed Pete warmly. It's good to see you again, Pete. If you're interested, we could offer you your previous job back, he said with a smile, looking at me. I can see why you moved on. Where did you find such a young appearance? He had no idea he had unlocked how I reviewed a new product. I approached it in the same way I did with my old truck. I subjected it to harsh treatment to see how long it would last, if it could withstand what I put it through. Then it was a good truck. By the end of the day, I admitted that it had held up well. I completed one activity but still have 9 more to go. When I got back to my hotel, it was about 7 o'clock. In the lobby, I spotted my daughter Carrie, her husband David, and their son Colin. I was covered in dry mud and looked like I needed a shower. Carrie approached me and greeted me warmly, saying, "Hi Dad, you look great. Can we have a chat?" An hour later, I saw David's nod and agreed, but first requested a quick shower. David eventually decided to join us. "You can wait here or move up to the suite with a kitchen like I advised. We can get food delivered or eat downstairs, whatever works for you." "Let's go to your suite and order food while you're showering," Carrie suggested, initiating a much-needed private conversation. We ordered food from room service, and I quickly showered. While getting dressed, Karen called, and I updated her before promising to call back later. I served everyone Crown Royal while the kids had Coke. I added water to mine and mixed it up. Carrie explained, "Dad, David and I have been dealing with a lot of problems lately. The conversation you discovered compelled us to confront it." She said seriously, "I only returned home last week. Mom has been talking about her friends for a while. We assumed you knew and were fine with it. My mother explained that we had different needs when it came to intimacy. David and I were struggling to resolve issues in our relationship. I took a lie detector test to reveal the truth about my actions. It saved our marriage," I explained. Repairing their relationship would take time and honesty. I hugged my grandson tightly and held him close to my chest. I asked David to take a picture of us. I realized I was acting like my mother, attempting to explain all of my actions from my perspective, but just because she believes she is right does not mean her actions were correct. Carrie pointed out that I was doing the exact same thing without realizing it, simply because it felt normal to me. Now I catch myself pausing to think things through before acting. It has been surprising to be truthful. "Dad, David told me that he is noticing new things about her that he has never noticed before. He believes they have a good chance of working things out if they both work hard and remain patient. Communication and true listening are essential. I tell them that being young means it's okay to ask for help from others, allow others' opinions to influence our marriage." Kendra eventually decided to break our vows. She probably blames me for the outcome, I informed them. "You are accurate, Dad," Carrie agreed. I informed my siblings that I would no longer listen to her excuses. I was determined to save my marriage. We had a fight, and I told them we could talk later when they were prepared. Then our food arrived. It was nice to eat together. Kay wondered if I was following a diet. I chuckled and explained that I had been performing physical activity rather than mental work, and my body was feeling fine. I no longer spend the entire day sitting at a desk or on the couch. They left at 10. Before leaving, Carrie hugged me and quietly stated, "I'm enjoying getting to know this new version of you." I chuckled and told her that since the divorce, I've been noticing different aspects of myself that were previously hidden, most likely as a result of the long relationship with your mother, which I was unaware of. I texted Karen to see if she was awake, and she was. I called her and explained what had happened that night. People often claim that time heals all wounds, but I'm not so sure. It means you've accepted what happened, you've learned to adapt, and accept situations as they are, even if it is not ideal. Some may argue that embracing reality is preferable. When I entered the Hampton Inn lobby at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night, faith and hope became apparent. When I arrived, My 2 young daughters were already there. I instantly understood Kindra had told them about our dispute. The daughters were furious with me and wanted to discuss how I had treated their mother. They believed I was acting cowardly. I brought the young women into my room so we could talk privately before they confronted me about abandoning their mother. They revealed that their own marriages had failed because their husbands refused to accept their independent, modern way of life. I could no longer deal with their complaints, so I requested that security intervene. When security arrived, I urged him to take the young ladies away because I wasn't interested in their offer. My girls were then led out through the back door and warned not to return. The Hampton Inn security team advised them that they did not want high-end girls spreading infections among their guests. Karen considered my behavior humorous. She said the young ladies would be reflecting a lot tonight. She stated that without love, someone always pays for sex in some form. She asked to share this with Amber and Meadow, and I agreed. She then compared it to lighting a stick of dynamite without a match, stating I did an excellent job. About 2 hours later, Carrie called my room. She complimented me saying, "Bravo, Dad. Well done." My 2 sisters recently realized that they too are susceptible to unpleasant odors. They were upset and departed in tears. I attempted to make a joke about it, but they refused to hear me explain. I had to contact someone else in the end. Security checked each of them and discovered no problems. Faith and Hope tried to clarify that they had distinct last names, but it was not accepted. Carrie observed that when their casual partners treated them well, they were effectively compensated early based on their delighted faces. They eventually seemed to grasp the implications. I'm pleased I didn't go that path. I feel awful. I've discussed that previously, I said. I asked David if he was involved in the conversation. He listened and enjoyed the way I described things. This has allowed us to better comprehend the situation. Carrie, how did Mom make us believe she was doing the right thing? Faith and Hope are upset. It will be some time before they can fix their concerns. They acted just like the street folks. They had been judging for so long. Carrie explained. Consider this. You condemned our father. But did you consider how our behavior and our mother's actions affected him? Did you think exclusively of yourself? That is a question I'm still trying to figure out. I used to remark that Mom saw everything in a favorable light, making everything acceptable with her current ideals. It wasn't until she got into trouble that your daughters discovered the reality about their surroundings. Carrie remarked that many people in our culture continue to wear masks, unable to recognize the reality right in front of them. She discovered something that many grown UPS may never understand in their lifetime. My daughter asked me what that was. I answered the ability to think logically about even the most basic issues. Your mother and I have lived very different lives. Now you're getting a glimpse inside my universe. You're learning a painful lesson. Last Wednesday, I joined Karen for a family supper. The ladies were excited to start planning our future move and working out the arrangements. I explained to them what Carrie had told me the night before. Later, we all pitched in to clean the dishes. I cleaned up, dressed the girls, and got them situated. When the females saw us kissing, they giggled and taunted us all night. Karen and I went for a nice dinner by the pier on Friday evening. We were having a drink and looking at each other when the twins abruptly appeared. The hostess walked up to us and said, "Your daughter saw you, Mr. Wade," and asked if they could sit with us. I hesitated, but Karen agreed. I got up and sat next to her. We cannot keep ignoring them. Even if you are furious with them, you still care for them. Karen urged that we listen to my daughters, whether I wanted to or not. Observing how the hostess led my daughters to our table, I realized they had something important to say. After they had sat down, I introduced Karen. Not only is she my lawyer, but she is also my girlfriend. In terms of faith and hope, I told them to leave if they came to criticize me again. Dad, Faith, and Hope spoke with Carrie on Tuesday. She was open and honest with them, but she did not provide the assistance they were looking for. Hope claimed they were given a tough reality check after Carrie spoke with us. We saw how our behaviors represented who we were, Faith said, that made us seem horrible. She likened our predicament to how girls are compensated, but remarked that it was different. We discussed our actions and recognized that many homeless people beg for money out of necessity, not choice. However, we judged them harshly for this. Hope told us it was all in good fun, and we didn't think we were doing anything wrong, but that only made matters worse. When we arrived home, we told Mom about it, and it escalated into a heated debate. Mom said we were influenced by conservative ideals too much. Faith heard her mother say something controversial: "Who cares if others are hurt?" In today's world, they must become more resilient. The actual issue is getting caught. There are no consequences for bad behavior in society. Simply look at the government. Powerful individuals break the rules and get away with it. It demonstrates that the laws are exclusively for select people. Life is not always clear-cut. The word hope was invoked. We all have the right to live however we want. Mom displayed no regret or guilt, which made us realize what we teach our pupils about right and evil, yet we have not provided a good example. We're here today because we found a wonderful 2-bedroom apartment nearby, where we'll live for 6 months. Faith informed us that it makes sense for us to live near our school, where we work. We believe it is a good idea to start over. We need to discover our own identities without Mom's guidance. Hope and I are changing tomorrow because Mom has a political function. When we saw you, we knew we needed to apologize, because we were mistaken, Dad. You did what you had to do. If you had challenged us, you would have found it tough. I hope you understand we needed to sort everything out on our own. Sometimes problems take time to resolve themselves. I soon forgave you, since I saw your acts were motivated by your mother, Kendra. I forgave her once previously, but will not do so again. She always acts selfishly and purposefully. After that, I gave them my phone and told them to enter their contact information. They did and saved my new number. Where is the phone number from? Hope asked. South Dakota, I exclaimed. OMG, you went back to your grandfather's farm. Faith responded with a huge smile. Do you know the farm? Karen inquired. Yes, Hope responded. Dad made sure we spent every summer there as kids until we turned into average teenagers. We even learned to drive Grandpa's tractor. Dad always took us for vehicle rides and made sure we arrived home safely throughout our journey. He spoke with us every evening. Mom never contacted us while we were gone. We realized that if we weren't in her sight, we were out of her thoughts. Faith stated that Grandma once described Mom as very self-absorbed. So, Dad, why are you in town? Is this due to Karen? Can we get your phone number? Dinner was like a small gathering. The twins learned about our new home and why I was in town. Karen mentioned that she has 2 significantly younger daughters while we were dining. Hope got a text from her older sister checking up on us. Hope texted that she was having supper with her father and girlfriend Karen. Faith and I intend to visit later to discuss everything. We walked calmly along the pier. Karen expressed her surprise that we were allowing them freedom to figure things out on their own. My father once stated that if you give people a chance, they would show their true colors. I concurred, noting that they had shown their actual selves. If I had been present as the twins said, it would have been people versus one, but in this situation, they turned on each other when confronted with the reality. Their own values proved to be their downfall. Karen noted that some people in our society prefer to place blame on external factors rather than accept responsibility for their actions. She stated that she became their target because she refused to participate in their wrongdoings, which she considered unethical. However, Kendra saw this as a vulnerability that could be exploited. Karen admires your steadfastness and considers it a defining characteristic. You are not readily persuaded by folks who lack principles. Staying true to yourself, this rigidity in your character demonstrates your strong commitment to your principles. Kendra returned home looking forward to seeing her twin daughters. The political meeting on Saturday seemed to last longer. She thought she wanted to invite the two others to hang out that night. After a heated dispute the previous time, she felt she had been overly harsh, and things became really heated as a result. She began to recognize similarities with their father, which she did not want to happen. When she placed her luggage on the counter to get a Coke from the fridge, she discovered 2 keys and a note. According to the note, they had moved out because they were unhappy with the person she had chosen for them. "I wish her good luck," they mentioned, blocking her number. It was signed with faith and hope. "Colin, he abandoned me. He did not come back and ask for a divorce after discovering I was cheating. Everyone in our social group was aware of it. I cannot see why he cannot see the reality. I should not have married someone so closed-minded. His ideals have devastated my life." Carrie needed to figure out where they were. She promptly called a buddy. She was unhappy because someone had mistreated her and departed. Carrie answered after 3 rings. Kendra asked to know where they put their hope and faith. Carrie claimed she hadn't heard from them since Tuesday night when Dad asked security to remove them from the Hampton Inn. Kendra wonders why they were thrown out. Carrie explained that they intended to confront Dad about the way he mistreated her. She stated how they attacked him violently. Dad decided he'd had enough of the situation and contacted security. When they came, he told them he wasn't interested in buying what they were selling. Carrie stated that security guided the 2 people out the back exit based on their assumptions. Faith and optimism are no longer allowed at the Hampton Inn, which has a policy barring upscale escorts operating on its premises. But they are not prostitutes. We both realized this. Kendra expressed concern as they came agitated. They shared their story with me. "Do you want to know what I told them, Mom?" Carrie asked solemnly. "Yes, I believe I would," Kendra replied. "I explained that we take our casual partners out and treat them. They were effectively rewarded beforehand." Carrie clarified. Carrie laughed as her mother's phone died. Kendra could not stop weeping. Carrie's remarks had a profound effect on her. She understood she could never talk to her husband Colin alone again. Kendra knew she had to be with someone whenever Colin was around. What Carrie mentioned about her father was unquestionably accurate. Kendra realized immediately away that when Colin spoke, he had terminated things for everyone without speaking to them personally. Anyone with a shred of honesty in them couldn't refute the impact of his words because everyone who heard them knew they were unquestionably true. It was a simple and factual statement. The woman discovered that her romantic feelings for a person she had a casual relationship with were only a mechanism for him to compensate her for something. He did not try to keep the truth from her. It took her 3 months to completely understand the message he delivered in the video. That night, she returned from Vancouver. She had been working as a high-class escort for 10 years, which the twins had accepted as normal. Due to her influence, her spouse could not take it and eventually left. It was unsurprising given her choices. It wasn't until now that she realized things from his perspective. When his truth was revealed to everyone, she was ruined. And he was aware of it as he departed. He left her with nothing. Not her dignity. She harmed her entire family by injuring herself. As have many others. She had gone too far in her manner of life. She stopped talking to her husband and daughters because she couldn't confront the truth about her behavior. She had never accepted responsibility or told the full truth before. This time she had no one else to blame, it was her fault and she knew it. Kendall realized she needed to sell her house to move on and let go of the past. The memories in the house were too traumatic for her to live with every day. Admitting the reality proved difficult. She claimed it was too big for her, which everyone believed. Eric Harper would be delighted to hear this news since he considered she had been fortunate thus far. Like him, she would be alone. Karen and I returned to our home after a night of fun. We ended up falling asleep on the sofa. Meadow and Amber used Karen's phone to send photos to my daughters. The females chatted and started making plans together. One daughter brought a blanket to cover us while we slept. When I checked my phone, I noticed an angel sleeping in my arms. It was after 7 a.m. We arrived around 1 a.m. Meadow was awake and seated, observing us. It seems that this would become the norm. Meadow smiled and added that Mom seems happy. I decided to go make coffee for everyone. After an hour, we all gathered at the kitchen table, conversing and resting. That's when the girls surprised us with some information. My family would arrive around 3 o'clock in the afternoon for our first meeting. Karen and I hurried to prepare while she changed her clothing. I ensured that we had adequate fuel for the barbecue. We created a grocery list and left for the supermarket. I quickly showered and shaved at home before we went shopping at a neighboring grocery store. We ran into Kendra as we left the house. She stopped in front of me and said, "Colin, please inform the girls that I am selling the house. If they need anything, Carrie still has a key. They can take anything they want when I'm at work since they're not talking to me. The same goes for you." I urged them to tell Karen. I granted her permission to perform for me, then I mentioned that I had already taken what I required. "I'll be around for 6 more days," she agreed and departed. We got our items into the van and talked about our weird meeting with Kendra. Something significant has occurred in Kendra's life that we are ignorant of. Kendra appeared distant today. Karen proposed, could it be because the twins moved out? I responded no, she was used to just us being there. I suspect something else occurred that has unsettled her, which she is trying to comprehend or accept. Kendra has a strong bond to the house. Something unexpected happened to her at the Barbie party. Karen and I learned about the twins' notes to their mother and what Carrie mentioned afterward. Our 5 daughters played well together. David and I mostly watched the girls play. Amber and Meadow took care of little Colin. I told my 3 daughters what their mother had said at the store. David wanted the large television. Carrie rolled her eyes. I chuckled quietly. Our first family gathering went quite well. After the girls had left and the cleanup was completed, we relaxed with a refreshing drink. So it appears that Faith and Hope chose to take a break. They wished to learn about themselves without their mother. Amber questioned why they would do that. They followed in their mother's footsteps and entered into relationships known as friends with benefits. Their first marriage failed when I left Kendra. They finally understood after I spoke up last Tuesday about how they were treating their mother. Carrie claimed that they argued with me that night and eventually left after a heated conversation with their sister. When they were friends with benefits, were they essentially being compensated in advance for their services when they went out for meals and drinks? Amber was extremely surprised. Amber and Meadow are mothers who realized early on that what actually matters is how the world perceives us, not how we see ourselves. I emphasized how everyone sees things differently depending on what you do or say. Actions sometimes speak louder than words, as Karen pointed out while leaning against me. That's why many questioned your father. His actions did not match his statements. So the twins decided to separate themselves from their mother for a while to figure out who they truly are. They needed to take responsibility for their acts. I told them I was proud of them for doing it. Their recovery began when they were honest about their actions. When we finished speaking, there was a moment of deep silence. Amber broke the silence by telling me that I would make a wonderful father. Karen got emotional. The rest of the week passed peacefully as we tried to spend every available moment together. The president was very pleased with the new tractor's performance. I named it Betsy. Before I left, we had a family gathering. I noticed that the twins were becoming friends with Karen's daughters. Colin did not want to leave Karen's side. She was still very maternal. Eric and Karen made a decision about how to divide their assets. Karen suggested that Eric have the house if he wanted, and he agreed. He regarded it as an opportunity to re-establish his relationship with his daughters. Karen watched as I boarded the plane to return home at the end of August. The family estate was completely set, the old house was demolished, a new one was built, and the barn was upgraded as needed. After cleaning, the yard appeared to be in good condition. I repaired the driveway to the house and barn before returning. Uncle John drove me to the airport where I rented a U-Haul truck and drove home. Karen had sold her business, and a co-worker would complete the divorce in September. Many packages had arrived at the farm within the last month. Uncle John was extremely helpful in organizing the new furniture and removing items that Mom and Dad no longer required. If he couldn't find anyone to give them to, he'd donate them to Goodwill. It was nice to see neighbors helping each other out. Karen picked me up at the airport on Friday evening at 6 p.m., and she had the biggest smile. Amber and Meadow were also there. I hugged her tightly and gave her a long-awaited kiss. Then I knelt down and asked her to marry me, which made her two daughters extremely happy. They recorded the special moment, including when I placed the ring on her finger. Amber and Meadow were aware of my situation and planned a large party at a restaurant for me. Our daughters and David were also there, and we all danced and ate dinner together. Meadow asked that we wait in the car when we arrived at Karen's home. Amber rushed in with a large bag for her mother, and they left quickly. Mom and Dad, we've reserved you a room at the Hampton Inn for the weekend. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you on Monday. When we arrived at our suite, we found a large basket waiting for us. The contents included 2 bottles of champagne, chocolate strawberries, 2 glasses, balloons, and roses. There's a card with it read, "Congratulations from your 5 daughters." We did not leave the suite all weekend. Simply enjoying everything. The next morning, we had a wonderful breakfast before heading out to pick up the U-Haul. The truck we got was larger than I had expected. I asked about it, but Karen said I'd have to wait until later in the day. For additional information, Faith and Hope arrived at 2 p.m. and delivered the news. They were also moving to the east. When they discovered I had returned to my father's farm, they applied for jobs in the same location. Both were hired by the Vermilion School Board. Karen gave them furniture, so we needed to help them move it. Their mother stayed at my house, and they rented a 3-bedroom home from a real estate agent. Amber could stay with them in town during bad weather. I decided to drop my legal case against Eric Hopper, after he agreed to pay for all of my Vancouver court expenses. At the end of September, we received our divorce papers. On the last Saturday of October, Karen and I exchanged vows in front of our blended family. Carrie, David, and little Colin flew in to join us for the ceremony. Karen surprised me with a heartfelt declaration of love. In front of everyone. Including our beloved son Colin and our family. I'd like to let everyone know that a new baby will be joining us. In May our doctor told me it would be a boy.